Welcome back. We are going to actually read about David and Goliath today. So turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 17 and chapter 18. Kind of excited about this one because it is one of the most famous stories of the Bible. So even people who don't believe in God knows exactly who David and Goliath is. It's like, oh yeah, the Goliaths in your. And all that. Anyways, let's get started. 1 Samuel chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered their enemies together to battle, and were gathered in Sokok, which belongs to Judah. They encamped between Sokok and Azekah and Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel will gather together, and they encamped in the valley of Elah and drew up the battle array against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And a champion went out from the camp of the Philistines named Goliath from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. We're going to look that up. Actually, I wonder if I can look it up right here. What is 6 cubits? Sorry, guys, I get distracted, but I want to know. 6 cubits and a span in feet. 9 feet, 9 inches. Excuse me. 9 feet, 9 inches, y'all. That's almost 10 feet. It's almost as tall as my Christmas tree. So I have a 10-foot Christmas tree. It's not like that huge, like what we see in um like pictures. Like David's like this big, and then Goliath is like this big. Well, technically he'd be like I just like anyways, tall guy. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had a bronze. Okay, sorry. 5,000 shekels of bronze. Okay. So that's equivalent to 125 to 157 pounds of bronze on his coat. And he had a bronze armor on his legs and bronze javelin between his shoulders. Now, the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels. So 600 shekels. So just a heavy one. Um, yeah, there's so much research I could have done here. But we're reading this Bible together. So if you were reading it too, you'd probably have the same questions. Um, Now the staff of his spear was like 600. Verse 8. Let's focus, guys. Verse 8. Then he stood and cried out to the armies of Israel and said to them, "Why have you come up to line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he's able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistine said, "I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together." Then Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistines, and they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David, the son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and who had 8 sons. And the man was old, advanced in years in the days of Saul. And the 3 oldest sons of Jesse had gone to follow Saul into battle. The names of his 3 sons that went into battle were Eliab, the firstborn next to him, Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David occasionally went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. Then Jesse said to his son David, "Take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run it to your brothers at the camp. And carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them." Now Saul and they all had the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting the Philistines. So David rose early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper and took the things. Okay. Took the things and went as Jesse and commanded him, and he came up to the camp as the army was going out to fight and shouting of the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had drawn up the battle array, army against army. And David left his supplies in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. Then, as he talked with them, there was a champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath, by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines, and he spoke according to the same words. So David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. So the men of Israel said, Excuse me. Have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich with great riches, will give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel. Ooh, it pays off to be a hero, honey. Okay, moving on. Verse 26. Then David spoke to the men of it, to the men who stood by him, saying, What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Yeah. So David was not happy. Verse 27. And the people answered to him in this manner, saying, So shall it be done for the man who kills them. Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, Why did you have to come here? And with whom have you left those sheep up in the wilderness? I know your pride and your insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. Notice that Eliab, I guess, just despised the courage that David had. Verse 29. And David said, What have I done now? Is there not a cause? And then he turned from him toward another, and the same thing. And these people answered him as the first ones did. Now, when the words of David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul, and he sent for him. Then David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth and a man of war from his youth. And he is a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, Your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Well, go, and the Lord be with you. So Saul clothed David with his armor, and he put a bronze helmet on his head. He also clothed him with a coat of mail. David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, and he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I cannot walk in these, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook, and then put them in the shepherd's bag in a pouch of which he had, and his sling was in the hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. So the Philistine came and began drawing near to David, and the man who bore the shield went before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and good looking. So Goliath was insulted. He was like, Are y'all playing in my face? That's what he was doing. So the Philistine said to David, Am I a dog? I was right. That you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And Philistine said to David, "Come to me. I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." And then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, and the Lord and the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, and that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands." And so it was when the Philistine arose, came and drew near to meet David, and David hurried and ran towards the army to meet the Philistine. Then David put his hand in this bag, took out a stone, and he slung it and struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and the stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword, drew it out of his sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that the champion was dead, they fled. Now the man of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines as far as the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the road of Shaaraim, even as far as Gath and Ekron. Oh, so we were chasing. We're chasing. Then the children of Israel returned from the chasing of Philistines, and they plundered their tents. And David took the head of the Philistines and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent. When Saul saw David going out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is this youth?" And Abner said, "As your soul live, O king, I do not know." So the king said, "Inquire whose son this is." Then as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, and the head of Philistines was in his hand. And Saul said, "Whose son are you, young man?" So David answered, "I am the son of your servant, Jesse the Bethlehemite." Wow. I think we're going to stop there because that was a very powerful chapter. Multiple things happen there. And we'll continue with how Saul resents David and all that. So that's in the next video, which I should be doing it hopefully tomorrow.